Hey, Chris Baker here, back with part 2 of my 3-part Mark Hamill interview from 2002. I hope you enjoyed part 1, which was all about Wolverine, and I hope you enjoy part 3 when I do it, which will be all about the Joker. But for right now, it's all about his love of comic books. I don't want to waste your time anymore. I'm just going to say he really loves them, and you're about to find out why.
Well, you know, he sort of personifies what I think Marvel did in the 60s, which was shake up that kind of complacency that had crept over a lot of the superheroes, where everybody was sort of like well-rounded and adjusted and comfortable with who they were. Where, you know, Superman had no flaws, really, and I think one of the things that really reverberated with the fans was that they started coming up with these characters that had great superpowers, but just their lives were so messed up, just like the readers. So that was a great kind of. I mean, it was revolutionary in its time. To be honest with you, I mean, I sort of was indoctrinated into comic books under the DC regime, you know. So I was all into the Bottle City of Candor and Laurie Lamaris and all that sort of magical Mort Weisinger kind of fantasy. And then when like I say, when Marvel came in, it was just such a departure, you know, with everybody cranky and arguing with each other. Fantastic Four was like, I don't know, Justice League with a just bad attitude. But it's really been great. And I've just done a project where I got to moderate a panel about Stan Lee, with Stan Lee there, in character as a fanzine writer.
Obviously, one of our passions is Commander Courage, a patriotic character of the Golden Age. Wasn't he the first patriotic character that I can remember?
He's the first patriotic character that ever meant anything to me.
Good answer.
I'm thinking of going into politics.
And then I got to have dinner with him. I mean, it's really like great to be a fan who's able to work professionally and bring my hobby along. It's really a treat, and it's people don't get it. I mean, like yesterday, or when was it? Day before yesterday, I went in to do the final Solomon Grundy on Justice League.
Oh right, yeah, I forgot you did that. It's true.
Yeah, and I read the script and I went, ooh, Dr. Fate's in this one. I was real excited, you know, because I love Dr. Fate. And so when we went to read, I think, who's playing Dr. Fate, you know? And the actor said, I'm Dr. Fate. And he had, I guess he was born in Israel, and he has a slight sort of British accent. And I thought, oh, your voice is perfect for Dr. Fate. Thank you. Then it was clear he'd read the script, he'd done his homework. But I was there to say, you're like DC's most mystical character. Only God has more power than Dr. Fate. You're stronger than Superman. And, and he's like, I really realized, Mark, turn down the fanboy dials a little bit. You know, he might be worried that you're going to follow him home or something. Yeah.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Grundy. I am Dr. Fate.
Girl gave Grundy the cookies.
Because I always felt semi-guilty reading comic books. My dad thought they were just trash, or for people that weren't smart enough to read regular books. Kind of, well, it's okay if you're a kid, but then you move on to real books.
So you've pretty much read comics all your life, then?
Well, there was a point where I did succumb to peer pressure, and the Beatles came out, and I thought, yeah, it is for kids. I shouldn't read comics anymore. But I never really stopped reading the funny papers. Yeah. And I'd find, I'd say, oh, what's going on with Norman Osborn? Is he still, So it's like a soap opera. You're kind of hooked and wanting to follow. So. And a lot of it was dollar-oriented. I mean, I didn't have the money to, just buy everything I wanted. So a lot of, I think, one of the things I love about comic books is the sort of social aspect of developing friends who have like interests. And here, you read my stack, I'll read your stack. And being a family of military, you'd always go to new places. And if you saw a kid sitting on the curb reading comic books, there's an immediate starting off point. So, I mean, it really was, for me, it was almost currency in the way you could use them to trade. And
what's your best comic that you have in your collection?
Oh gosh,
I know you have a Detective 27.
I do. But see, the thing is, I remember when it was really so different than now. It's like, your accountant calls you and say, did you get that into the safety deposit box down at the bank? And I go, well, that's no fun anymore. We have to go to the bank to visit your collection. I like getting them out and showing people. I love them the way they reflect history, whether they're World War II books or like Red Scare comic books of the 50s and plus pre-Playboy and Penthouse. A lot of those 40s and 50s glamour, jungle comics and some of the good girl art, you just go, holy moly. You know they bought that for the cover. They'll never read this book. You look at the sales; they were like two, sailors and a lot of them were not for kids.
Right.
Do you have access to those big they're pictures of covers of every comic book ever? They're big, Gerber, heavy books.
Yeah.
I mean, you look through some of those books in the 40s, and it's some of the sexiest, what they call good girl art. They call it good girl art for a reason. It's like nude women, but with costumes drawn on. But, I mean, you see everything. Mm. And it's quite lovely, because I love that kind of suppressed, everything's so in your face now. You open up these magazines, it's like going to gynecology school, There was, she's the jungle, but she's dressed, but it's just, to me, it's just so much more erotic. There she is in her little leopard skin outfit, with her, astride her tiger. The men are all weak, she's strong. It's wonderful. It's kind of like one of my favorite ways to go back to the way you felt when you were very, very small. It's a shame that people always think of just superheroes when they think of comic books, because just like the world of literature, there's just so much out there. I mean, my kids will tell you, when they were little growing up, I read them. I mean, I read them regular books, Dr. Seuss and stuff I liked. Mr. Popper's Penguins, Charlotte's Web. Loved reading out loud, but I also would read them Carl Barks, Uncle Scrooge stories, and John Stanley's Little Lulu, which is not only hysterically funny, but it's effortless feminism, because the guys are always, no girls allowed, clubhouse only, and Lulu is like, whatever, she's not trying to break in or anything, but by the end of the story, everything's turned upside down. She's gained what she wants by making the guys come to her. I mean, I think it's just brilliant, ahead of its time, kind of, and it's funny. Like the Little Rascals are timeless and will always be funny, and Laurel and Hardy will always be funny.
Luke Skywalker is kind of a big nerd, isn't he? I think he knows more about comic books than I do. I know he knows more about the Joker than I do, and that's part 3, and I hope you tune into it, so please subscribe to make sure that you catch it. I'll talk to you then.